boxing news. Ow!
Okay, we'll start with this. Well, per tweet from Michael Benson, Eddie Hearn has confirmed that Calum Smith is moving up to light heavyweight following his defeat to Canelo. They are planning for him to return at his new weight this year. And you can expect that fight to be a gimme fight. You can expect a lighter touch in what is to be Calum Smith's light heavyweight debut.
Coming off a loss? Of course.
With this move, certain potential opponent options come to mind almost immediately. Joshua Buatsi being one, Dimitri Bivol being another. I would have said the name of Calum Johnson, but as you all may or may not be aware, Calum Johnson so decided to cross over to the Queensberry Promotions Frank Warren side of things. So I think that, at least for now, that takes his name out of the running as a potential opponent for Calum Smith. One name,
another one,
that comes to mind is the name of former WBO and Unified Champion Sergey Kovalev. Call me crazy, but I don't think we've seen the last of that guy. The rumor is that Golden Boy Promotions still has a commitment to that fighter. They still owe that guy a fight. They still owe that guy some money. And I just so happen to think that the people over there at Golden Boy might so decide to pawn him off on someone else. Make him their problem. The way the Top Rank did in the contract language of the Canelo Alvarez fight. The contract language stipulated that if Sergey loses the fight,
it then becomes Golden Boy Promotions' problem.
Could something similar happen here between Sergey Kovalev, Calum Smith, the people over there at Golden Boy, and the people over there at Matchroom? Well, the network relationship exists between them. Their fighters do fight on the same platform. Whilst this is largely speculation on my part.
It is.
I'm just bouncing ideas around. I will say that this is something that's probable and I dare say plausible. Could happen.
It could.
I'm just not convinced we've seen the last of that guy. So as far as Calum Smith's potential opponent options upon ascending to the light heavyweight division, we're talking about Joshua Buatsi, we're talking about Dimitri Bivol, we could be talking about Sergey Kovalev, we could even be talking about Bektemir Melikuziev.
The guy Sergey was supposed to fight?
I think that's a genuine possibility as well, because I reiterate the network relationship exists between Matchroom and Golden Boy Promotions. Their fighters fight on the same platform. Thus, that kind of a matchup is a genuine possibility. Perhaps not straight away, but somewhere down the line. Now, as far as Calum potentially fighting for a world title at some point, I can imagine that most of you already don't like his chances against any of the upper echelon fighters in the light heavyweight division, it being that he wasn't exactly battle-tested against all of the upper echelon fighters in the super middleweight division. You know, he never fought the Caleb Plants, David Benavidez's, Anthony Durrell's,
he didn't.
Zurdo Ramirez's of the world. I also want to add that Zurdo is a potential opponent option for Calum as well, depending on where Zurdo ends up, since things with Marcus Brown have fizzled out. In case you're not already aware,
Zurdo pulled out of that fight.
A fight that I've no doubt would have taken place under the PBC banner on one of their network affiliates platforms, be it Fox or Showtime. Zurdo pulled out of that fight, he pulled out of that situation, and that opens the door for him to pop up almost anywhere, Matchroom included. I think Zurdo is a potential opponent option for Calum Smith as well, but moreover, I think many of you are hearing this news and you don't really like Calum Smith's chances against the upper echelon fighters at 175, though in truth,
he likely won't face many of them.
In truth, there is a chance that he doesn't make it that far, because 3 of the 4 major titles in the light heavyweight division are on the top rank side of things, and they've got their plans for their guys. The only major title on the Matchroom Promotions DAZN side of things for Calum to potentially fight for just so happens to meet Dimitri Bivol's title. Maybe they can give Calum Smith some lighter touches, some gimme fights for the next 2 fights, but the moment he sets foot in the ring with Dimitri Bivol, I'd wager that Dimitri picks him apart.
And Dimitri's actually wanted that fight for some time.
That could be a fight that people over there at Matchroom decide to start building towards. I wasn't falling out of my chair with excitement over Calum Smith's reign as a champion at 168, and he's even less proven at 175. Maybe it'll be a better weight for him, as it will be an easier weight to make. Maybe he'll arrive there feeling stronger,
more energized,
more invigorated. But the moment he crosses paths with a fighter like Dimitri Bivol, that's the moment where that campaign is going to go sideways for Calum. That's what I think about it, and you can feel free to disagree. When it comes to Dmitry Bivol, the story in reference to him seems to be that he's going to be taking on Craig Richards. They're in negotiations for a fight to potentially take place in April. Eddie Hearn has revealed Richards won the British light heavyweight title last time out and could now take a massive step up to challenge for the WBA title. What do I think about this development? What do I think about this news? It's been a long time since Dmitry Bivol fought anybody.
Roughly 15 to 16 months.
He was last in action in October of 2019, and we haven't seen him since.
Whereas Craig Richards was in action late last year.
In December against Shakan Peters, Craig Richards sports a professional record of 16 wins, 1 loss, and 1 draw. That loss coming at the hands of Frank Buglioni. Craig Richards is not a battle-tested guy at the world level, on the world stage, on the world scene.
He's not.
Craig is, for the most part, still a domestic-level fighter until further notice, until he proves otherwise, until he proves he's more than that. That's what he is. He's a domestic-level guy. But with Dmitry needing a tune-up fight, having been out of action as long as he has been, that kind of sets the precedence for the match. It sets the stage. Dmitry's not going to snap back from that long stint of inactivity against some killer.
Of course not.
Most fighters wouldn't. Thus, I'm not surprised they're looking at a domestic-level British guy fought Dmitry Bivol's comeback fight.
And I got no harsh criticisms to levy.
It's already been about 15 to 16 months since Dmitry Bivol saw any action, so who are you expecting him to fight under those circumstances? I mean, if you're not familiar with this industry already, this is how things work. This is what happens. When a guy's been out of action a long time, they don't throw him in there with a killer straight away.
So am I excited about the fight?
No, not really, but I've seen worse tune-up fights, worse tickovers than this. Thus, I'm not up in arms about it. It's a necessary evil.
It happens.
That being said, the sooner it happens, the sooner we can start talking about more serious fights that are on the table for Dmitry Bivol. More serious fights with more serious fighters that will captivate the boxing fans' imagination. So yes, Craig Richards, he doesn't seem all that prepared for this fight to me, but he was active late last year. He doesn't have a bad record, and this is, I reiterate, a necessary evil. No complaints from me.
Fight. So right now his purse minimum is set at $1.25 million. Sorry, T.O., I had to put that out there just to say that at this moment, anybody can bid to have to promote his next mandatory fight. If they bid and make that purse minimum at $3 million or $4 million, he's going to go with the 3 or the 4 because that's more than 1.25. Yeah. And because he's undisputed, he's worth more than 1.25. It's what it is. Sorry, but it is what it is. So anybody looking at him like he's asking for too much or he's got a hot head now because he's, the hottest thing out right now. Yo, he said it. I'm your favorite fighter's favorite fighter. I heard that last night. I said, dang. He is one of my favorite fighters.
I have to correct myself in reference to this story. I guesstimated that there was a little over $2 million for Teofimo Lopez ahead of this George Kambosos mandated title defense by way of his promoter, Bob Arum, in Top Rank. Money that Teofimo Lopez isn't really happy with. But as it turns out, what's on the table for him is less than that. Half, to be exact. It is $1.25 million that's on the table for Teofimo Lopez, and that's why we find ourselves in the situation that we find ourselves in. That
Teofimo's not happy with the money.
So this thing is going to a purse bid. Per tweet from World Boxing News, Eddie Hearn aims to promote the undisputed champion Teofimo Lopez's very next fight, and he plans to do so by placing the winning bid. Now, as you can imagine, old Bob, he's not happy about this. In so many words, he's saying that's a really bad way to start off their business relationship because they're in the midst of negotiating the biggest fight in the sport of boxing, the Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury fight. And Eddie Hearn placing a bid in for a fight that involves a top-ranked fighter. To have that fight happen on the DAZN platform, well, that's no way to start the relationship, though in truth, you can't have it both ways, Bob. If you can't put up the kind of money that Teofimo Lopez is looking for to ensure that the fight happens on the ESPN platform, then Teofimo Lopez is well within his rights
to look elsewhere for it.
Just as Eddie Hearn is well within his rights to bid on the fight. Bob Arum, in so many words, described that course of action as being ill-advised. Ill-advised on Eddie Hearn's part, but what's ill-advised about it?
What?
If you can't satisfy your fighter's financial demands, there's nothing wrong with that fighter in this situation, this particular situation. There's nothing wrong with that fighter pursuing other avenues of opportunity to get at the kind of money they're trying to get at, the kind of money that you don't want to give them. In truth, there are two sides to every story, and when it comes to this one, I actually understand both sides of it. I know where Bob's coming from. A lot of guys want a lot of cash that may or may not be there. The live gates haven't come back.
Not all the way.
Not all the way.
They haven't.
Teofimo Lopez should have made more from the Vasyl-Lomachenko fight than he did. But because the fight happened in the absence of a live crowd, in the absence of a live audience, that affects that entire revenue stream to the point where it's not even there. And that hasn't really changed yet. There are pockets of activity in the United States. Some fight fans being allowed into fights down there in Texas, but this ain't across the board, you understand. This ain't nationwide. Until the live gates return, until they're back, all the way back, this is going to be the situation, and everyone is feeling the pinch.
Everybody.
So I get where Bob's coming from, and I even get where Teofimo Lopez is coming from. You know, he took on some big risks in that Richard Commey fight, and he took on even bigger risks in the Vasyl-Lomachenko fight, and he wants to be paid accordingly based on those risks that he took and securing the W's.
I get it.
I get that too. I mean, these are prize fighters. You'd be a fool. You'd have to be a wide-eyed idiot, some naive moron that lives under a rock that thinks
It don't matter.
the prizes aren't important to the prize fighters. I get it. I get both sides of it. That being said, if Teofimo wants to let this thing go to a purse bid so that a promoter like Eddie Hearn can pour more money into the pot than Bob Arum was willing to pour into it, I understand.
That's why I haven't taken issue with this.
Because Teofimo Lopez is in fact going through the proper channels.
He is.
If you're not happy with the kind of money that Bob's putting up, see if you can get it elsewhere.
If Bob doesn't like it, all fucking well.
If it means that much to you, then pony up the cash, cough up the bread, show me the money. I know what some of you might be thinking. Why are you supportive of Teofimo Lopez's endeavor to get at more money, but you're not as supportive of Sean Porter when they're essentially trying to do the same thing? And it's because they're going about it in different ways.
Pay attention.
Teofimo Lopez is going through the proper channels.
Pay attention.
Sean Porter is not. Sean Porter is simply making demands.
Asserting that he commands large crowds and asserting that he commands large money.
The $2 million offered to him, $2 million up front, is an insult. And okay,
all right.
If you're really good for it, and that's really an insult, if that's really small potatoes, let's see if you can spit in the wind and hit a $2 million guarantee. Let's see if you can spit in the wind and hit a world title opportunity and a $2 million guarantee to fight a world champion. Let's have it.
Let's see if you can get that kind of money elsewhere.
Because that's what Teofimo Lopez is doing. He's trying his luck in the open market to see if he can get at the kind of money that he wants to get at. Whereas Sean is simply
making demands and not much else.
I mean, if you're as good for the money as you say you are, then why aren't your people putting up the scratch? Why aren't your people putting up the cash? Why aren't your people making offers to see about having the fight on their side of things? Bob Arum, in so many words, already said that he'd be happy to let somebody else pay for the fight.
He said the same thing about the Lopez fight, too.
So it's time to show and prove. If you really are good for the money, the way that you say you are, why aren't your people putting it up? Where's Al Heyman with his checkbook?
What are you waiting around on Bob for?
It's Bob. You're a star. You're Barbara fucking Streisand.
You command such a large fucking audience.
Well, command it then, why don't you? Why don't you get your own people to stake their own money instead of waiting on Bob to stake so much of his? You're good for the money, right?
They know you're good for it.
And that's the difference between how Teofimo is going about getting at more cash and how Sean is going about getting at more cash. Teofimo is walking it like he talks it, whereas Sean is just making demands, baseless demands. If Sean Porter really is good for more than just $2 million, you tell me why his own people aren't acting like it. You tell me, where are they with their checkbooks? There's all this talk about Terrence Crawford potentially leaving Top Rank for the shores of PBC Island.
Been hearing that stuff.
When it comes to those PBC guys, if they really wanted to flex on the people over there at Top Rank, they'd put in a bid, a solid bid in for this fight that ensures Terrence gets paid the way he normally gets paid and at the same time satisfy Sean Porter's financial demands.
That'd be the biggest flex.
That would send both Terrence Crawford and the people over there at Top Rank a message. But you don't see them doing that, do you? You don't see any counteroffers coming from the people over there at the PBC. Gee, I wonder why. I thought Sean was good for the money. I thought he's this big star that commands a big audience. And finally, some featherweight news. I'm not sure if you guys came across this bit of information. It does seem to be flying relatively low on the radar, given the aforementioned parties involved. It appears that TGB Promotions, it's Tom Brown's promotional company, they've won the purse bid for the mandatory versus Kid Galahad for $50,000. TGB bid the minimum when nobody else showed up for the purse bid, which was done via video conference. And essentially what that means is that Kid Galahad's upcoming fight for the newly vacated IBF title will be happening under the PBC banner as TGB, Tom Brown's promotions, they basically work heavily with the PBC. They're also affiliated with this weekend's fight involving Adrian Broner and then that guy he's fighting.
What guy?
I don't fucking know. I'm not watching that shit. The point is that TGB Promotions is just another way of saying PBC. And that in and of itself, them winning the bid, lends credence to the notion that Kid Galahad will either accept the PBC's multi-fight offer if Kid Galahad hasn't accepted it already. Kid Galahad wins the red belt at 126 pounds. That will give the PBC most of the world titles in that weight class, as they will be in Leo Santa Cruz business. Leo Santa Cruz, who holds the WBA title. The Gary Russell Jr. business. Gary Russell, who still is the WBC's featherweight champion. And what could very well be the newly crowned IBF champion, Kid Galahad. And that could very well affect the landscape at 126 pounds moving forward, because the PBC could then do to Emmanuel Navarrete at 126 what they've been doing to Terence Crawford at 147. Essentially what that means is they could freeze El Vaquero out and stage unification matches between their 3 reigning champions.
That's unfortunate for Emmanuel.
He really hasn't been at this weight all that long, and he just became a champion in his very last fight. But this would effectively take unification matches off the table for him. And whatever unification matches do happen in the featherweight division in the near future will be happening solely under the PBC banner. The most that we can hope now is that what unification matches do happen under the PBC banner at least happen in a timely fashion. I mean, if you have the power to make the fights, just make the fucking fights.